This is Real Talk with Leigh Brown. Today, our episode is in a little bit of a different direction. I'm bringing to y'all one of the most amazing men in my life. His name is Mike Stubbs. Now, Mike is a Purple Heart Vietnam veteran who saved a bunch of lives and just has not had the recognition that many of us believe he deserves for the work that he did to protect the lives of the men in his squadron in Vietnam and for all the work that he's done since then. This is a long episode, pretty intense. I hope you're going to enjoy getting to know Mike and hearing a little bit about what happened back in the 1960s. And there's some ways that you can help us bring this story forward. So enjoy the conversation, and I'll see you on the other side. If you're watching my show because you're in real estate, then you can actually just listen and learn today because we're having an entirely different conversation with a man whose story is wild and valuable and is going to give you a different perspective on the Vietnam era veterans and how they need to be recognized going forward. So I'll just go ahead and tell y'all before we dig in, if you know your congressional representatives, make sure their staff watches this, because they're going to hear a story from a man who needs to be recognized on a little higher level. So today I'm bringing you Mike Stubbs. Mike is, of course, not just a Purple Heart Vietnam veteran. We're going to talk about his story a little bit, but he's a longtime family friend. His daughters were my babysitters. I know y'all are shocked to hear that because I look so young. And he's a good friend of my dad. His wife is a gold medalist in the senior games for pickleball. Excuse me, both of you are, but Carolyn usually takes the credit.
Right.
So here he is, and I want y'all to get the chance to hear Mike. So Mike, why don't you tell my audience a little bit about what you do now, and then we'll dig into how you landed there, because we're also going to tell you all the ways that you can support everything that he does later on in our episode.
Well, now I'm very involved, and even though I've been out of the military many years, I'm still very involved doing things for veterans. I love the veterans. I'm on a lot of committees. I'm on the board with the Queen City Honor Flight, which we just had an honor flight on this past Saturday going to Washington, D.C., taking the veterans. We had 112 veterans on the flight. We had 8 Korean veterans. We had 72 Vietnam veterans, and we had 20 plus Iraq, Afghan, Grenada, people like that on the plane. An excellent flight. We take them up for the day, let them see the memorials dedicated to them, and they really enjoy it. Plus, I'm the commander for 15 years now, for the commander of the Military Order of the Purple Heart Combat Wounded Veterans Chapter 634, which serves basically the Piedmont and western part of North Carolina. We help the veterans, not just Purple Heart. We help any veteran that needs help, and that's what I enjoy doing. I actually have another veteran. He's a Marine veteran, and we work together getting coffee, things like that to veterans, and we thoroughly enjoy what we do.
And by the way, if you're in real estate and you're thinking now about Veterans Affairs, check out our past episodes where I've had the head of Veterans Affairs Housing on. There is a good episode about the ways that the VA helps our disabled veterans in specific that many real estate pros aren't aware of. So go get yourself educated so you too can be a resource to our vets. And if you're in North Carolina, if you've ever driven into a town that says this is a Purple Heart town, this is the guy that got these towns to make that happen, because it's important that our veterans know when they come home, they are still valuable, not forgotten, and especially those who made the ultimate sacrifice. So why don't you start off by telling our audience a little bit, Mike, about what the Purple Heart means, because we do have a lot out there. If they don't come from a family that's military attached, they might not have a good grasp of what it actually means.
Well, back to one thing you mentioned about the Purple Heart towns and so something we're very proud of. We made North Carolina the first all Purple Heart state in the nation. We made all 100 counties Purple Heart counties by proclamation. Plus, I made my job to make every town, Concord, Locust, Midland, Harrisburg, Charlotte, everything within like a 10 county region. We made every one of them Purple Heart cities, Purple Heart towns. We're really, really proud of that. But the Purple Heart's a medal that basically people say, I've had people say, well, congratulations. You don't congratulate someone for a Purple Heart. Purple Heart is something nobody wants. This is only given to people that are wounded in combat by the hands of the enemy. So it's something no one desires to receive. And many of the Purple Heart veterans are, as you know, they're deceased from their wounds. So they die in combat. Each one of those receives a Purple Heart. Every person that is on the wall in Vietnam, in the Vietnam Wall, has received a Purple Heart. So a lot of people understand that they think that every military person in the military is in combat or getting shot at. That's not true. Basically, Vietnam, 1 out of 15 are on the front lines. Out of the 40 plus million people that have served this country in uniform, less than 1% has received a Purple Heart. We're the second smallest military organization, second only to the Congressional Medal of Honor Society.
So just out of curiosity, when you were bringing the idea of being a Purple Heart town to these municipalities, did you get any pushback, or was it pretty much absolutely we're all in no matter where you were?
Actually, it went very smoothly. I assigned one of my Purple Heart veterans, also a Vietnam veteran, Ron Wade. I assigned Ron to basically contact these towns and tell them what we were doing. We had no one had negative ideas about it. Everybody, when they found out about this, when they found out that the little town next to them or the county next to them has already made a Purple Heart county or town, they said, we got to do it. We can't let them outdo us. And what is so nice, yes, whenever I ride down just such as you ride down 24, 27, driving toward Albemarle, the first little town you go through is Midland, and you got Locust. Then you got the big town of Red Cross, which if you know where Red Cross is, if you blink, you'll miss the town, but it's a neat little town. Albemarle, every one of those have put up signs recognizing themselves as being Purple Heart designated. Really wonderful.
Absolutely, because if you didn't know that distinction, now you're going to think about it a little bit differently, because nobody goes into military service wanting to get wounded.
No.
They don't want the Purple Heart. No. But that is definitely a moniker for those who should receive just a little bit heavier gravity when we're thinking about what service looks like. Now, your service in Vietnam, like my dad was in Vietnam, but he did not get the Purple Heart. And I'm very glad that he did not have to bring that home with him, because he did not really enjoy his time in the service. That was not his favorite time in life. And y'all should also know that not every veteran lives to be gung-ho about it, because if they were drafted in, particularly during the Vietnam era, that was not something anybody was looking to happen, which is why you hear people make a lot of comments about things they don't have knowledge of. So maybe just dig a little bit deeper. So Mike, when Vietnam was going on, you were in the early stages of that war, when, of course, the politicians were doing things that not everybody else was privy to. So the choices of the young man on the street were limited. Did you sign up, or did you get drafted?
Well, it's kind of a unique story. I was working for Western Electric at the time and wasn't really liking the job that much. And I said I knew I was probably going to be drafted. So I actually went down to the draft board and volunteered for them. And what's so unique, no one in my family knew this until when I got wounded. I got wounded 3 times in 9. My worst wound was shot in the neck and sprayed with shrapnel. On my last day actually in the jungle. And I had to go through surgeries in Vietnam, had to go through surgeries in Japan, and they brought me back to the States. I actually came home. I was one of the lucky guys. I came home on a medical plane from Vietnam and went to Fort Bragg to Womack Army Hospital, because many of the guys would come through the airports. And as you know, it was not a pleasant thing when a veteran came home from Vietnam. But it was, after I got out of the hospital, things started happening. I started seeing the way people were reacting and the thoughts and things they were saying and things of that sort. But what happened, I was in Womack Army Hospital, and I didn't even know this. The Army, they had contacted my family. I'm laying there in the bed in the hospital, and all of a sudden, here comes a crowd of people walking. It was my whole family, my parents, my 3 siblings and their spouses. They had all gotten married. I was not married at the time. They all came in, and I was actually engaged to him. And she was with them. And it was just an amazing thing. And that's when I actually told my family then that I had volunteered for it. Nobody even knew that till that day.
They thought you'd been just straight up drafted in?
Straight up drafted, because I received a letter in the mail just like anyone else.
So I did not know there was a fiance before Carolyn.
Yes, there was. There was a young lady that I was engaged to while in Vietnam, and the engagement got broke. I'm still, to this day, I don't know why, when, where, or how. When I came home from Vietnam, when I first came home, I'll be honest with you, I know I didn't have the perfect mindset because of things that I had been through, things that I had done. I had a kind of a unique job in Vietnam, so, a tunnel rat. Plus, I was a squad leader over men, and I was a sergeant. But I just, when I got home, you came home so quick. No one talked to you about anything. When I came home, I still had some time to do. I still had like 7 months to be in the Army and still do my job. So I was going to OCS. So sergeant, I'd already, in Vietnam, I had a company commander who was Lieutenant Welch, First Lieutenant Welch. Clark Welch, soldier. This man, at one time, he had been just a sergeant first class, just an E7. And he was over the recon, which go out and recon the area sometimes. Well, Clark Welch went straight from sergeant first class to first lieutenant. He was that good of a soldier. Well, Clark Welch, what happened was they brought a whole company, the infantry battalions in Vietnam under the Big Red 1 1st Infantry Division. We had Alpha, Bravo, and Charlie Company. That was your infantry company. Well, they decided they wanted to add a 4th infantry company to each battalion, which was going to be called Delta. And what they did for Black Lion 2nd Battalion, 28th Infantry, they brought the whole unit over on a ship. The whole company, they were all green. None of them had any Vietnam experience. Well, Clark Welch, I was with Alpha Company. I'd already been there like 9 months. And Clark Welch, he took over Don Saltair was the company commander. I'll tell you a little bit more about Don Saltair in a few minutes. Don Saltair was the company commander of Alpha. Well, after so many months, 6 months or so, company commander, they pulled him out, put him in another position. He kind of goes to the rear. Well, Clark Welch came to Alpha Company to be in charge of it for just a few weeks until the new Delta Company arrived. He already knew he was going to have Delta.
He was getting all those green.
He was getting
soldiers.
all the green.
Ooh.
But what happened was when they came into Cam Bay, captain named Jim George, he was over them when they were back in the States. He was company commander for the whole company on the ship. And they arrived at Cam Bay. Clark Welch and First Sergeant Bud Barrow met them as they were coming off the ship. And he told them who he was. Well, Jim George said, "This is my company." Clark Welch said, "No, it's not. It's mine." Clark Welch already knew what they were going to do. They sent Jim George to Alpha Company because he would have a company that had experienced men, experienced sergeants, experienced lieutenants under him, which would help him out a lot. Well, what happened was we took the Delta Company. They told Clark Welch he wouldn't have everybody green. So what they did, they were smart about it. They took some of the men from each platoon from Delta Company, put some with Alpha, some with Bravo, some with Charlie, which made sense. And then they told Clark Welch, he said, "We want you to pick so many, like 3 sergeants from Alpha, Bravo, and Charlie to go with you to help get this new company, Delta Company, ready for combat." Well, I was lucky. I was one of them picked to go help train these new soldiers. And we had to go actually set up our whole base camp. They took us, and we were based in Leigh, Vietnam. Well, they took us and kind of put us outside of Leigh. I mean, we were by ourselves. And the engineers come in and built some of the hoochie stuff, just a little bit. Wasn't anything fancy. We set up there, and then we started training these guys for a few weeks before we go out into the jungle and things. But it was just such a unique thing because I know somebody told Clark Welch that I could draw who it was. But next thing I know, we had a little company club right next to the mess hall, which, the guys come in. They had beer and stuff like nothing, no hard liquor or anything of that sort, no wine, just beer. And so I drew a big red 1 on the wall, and I drew a big black lion on the wall. And what was so funny was I said, "These walls are ugly." It was just plywood. I said, "I got to fix this." So I went and found a blowtorch.
So that'll fix a lot of things.
I took that blowtorch, I burned the wall, and it made it a beautiful, looked like paneling. Then it looked like, made it beautiful brown. And, but what happened was everybody kept smelling smoke. They thought the building was on fire, but it wasn't the building. But I've actually got some pictures of that, but I sent them home, which was nice because when I actually got wounded, I didn't get to send anything. I mean, I had a special knife that my dad, being a tunnel rat, you always carried a pistol, a flashlight when you went in the tunnels. But I wanted a knife. We had a bayonet. I didn't like the bayonet. They were not worth anything. Well, I wrote Dad a letter. I didn't tell my parents and the girl I was engaged to, I didn't tell them anything about what I was doing in Vietnam. Right. I basically told them, that's fine. Nothing's really happening to us. But my brother Stubbs, Merle, which I would write him and tell him basically what we were doing. Because if something happened to me that I was seriously wounded or killed, he was who they were to contact, not my family, not my parents.
So did you not have censors reading your mail? I thought that everything was censored, or was that prior?
No, not really. No, they would X-ray packages and stuff like that because they didn't want people sneaking weapons or sending certain things home to their family. Souvenirs. Yeah, they didn't want them doing that. I told Dad, I said, Dad, I need a good knife just to have on me while I'm over here. Next thing I know, a week or so later, here comes a package. Jim Bowie knife. You know what a Jim Bowie knife is?
I do.
I mean, they're
real. It's a real
well,
knife.
I'll be honest with you. I don't know how most people are, but I'm the kind of person, I'd rather been shot than to been stuck with. That knife, more than once, I will never tell everybody everything I had to do in tunnels. And there's a couple of things written up about me about some things I did, but other things, I won't tell it. But when a person sees that knife, their eyes get real big. Next thing they start thinking about, I want to confront this person.
So what happened to your knife when you were wounded? Did they confiscate it?
Yeah, when I got wounded in the hospital, what's so funny about the hospital? They first took us back to Leigh on the choppers, medevac choppers. And they said, some of you guys, they looked at me, I didn't realize that day I was the most seriously wounded, even though my adrenaline was sky high. But they said, some of you have to go on to Long Bend to the main hospital. So they flew us to the hospital. I'm walking around the hospital. I'm thinking about, I'm shot in the neck, got pieces of shrapnel in me. I'm talking to my guy. Because I had 7 more men the same day. I'm talking to them. A couple of them went to another hospital. I'll tell you a little bit about them after this. But with next thing I know, they come walking out of the couple of doors, flew open and said, where's the man with the bullet in his? I'm looking around. I'm not even thinking about it. And
who else has a bullet?
Yeah. And then they said, Sergeant Stubbs. I said, I'm right here. Don't move. The last thing I remembered that day, because next thing I know, they brought a gurney out, put me on the gurney because where the bullet had gone in, went in here, and they had to cut me here to get it out. So, in a bad place. Doctor, the next morning when he came around, he said, you're a lucky person. That bullet should have took your head off. But the way it went in, I was lucky because it severed. Thank God it didn't hit an artery, but it severed nerves. I don't have any feeling in my hand, neck. I can touch my ear here, and I feel it under here. It's just everything. I just have no feeling in my face, right side, shoulder, things of that sort. What happened was the 2 gentlemen I was telling you about, Larry Beckwith and Ron Clark, they were sent to another location. Well, what happened on the day we were wounded, I wouldn't get on the choppers. I picked up one of my men, my grenadier, threw him over my shoulder, grabbed 2 others and pulled them out where the medevac choppers were coming.
While you had a bullet in your neck, you picked up a guy?
Yeah, threw him over the shoulder. And I didn't weigh 120 pounds soaking, but he wasn't big either. Over there, you didn't gain a lot of weight. I carried all these fellas out. I wouldn't get on the chopper. I'm talking to Clark West during it. And they came up to me and said, don't worry about me. I'm okay. I'd already put a patch on my neck, so on and so on. And Clark West, we were talking, and finally he said, Stubbs, you got to get on the chopper. Because I said, everybody else, he said, yeah, all your men are taken care of. They're accounted for. They're on the choppers. You got to get on the chopper. So I actually finally got on the chopper. Well, I turned and saluted Clark Wells. Then I just fell over for years. It was 34 years. Clark Wells, they thought probably I died when I fell over. I probably fell over dead. And because 8 days later, he's all shot up in the back. Bud Barrow, the first sergeants, they're all shot up. We lost 64 men that day, 64 wounded, 72 64 killed, 72 wounded, MIAs, missing in action. They were not missing in action. There was just nothing left of them. But I'm laying there on the floor because all the little cots and things already had somebody laying on them, other guys, because there was 2 medevac choppers there. And one of them, Larry Beckwith, he was on a little cot above me. And I never found out this until I found out I was actually alive. Larry said he kept watching me. Said he noticed my chest going up and down. He said he noticed all of a sudden my chest stopped. Thought I died right then, stopped breathing. Well, Larry lives in Ohio. Ron Clark lives in Ohio. Well, Don Sawtell, who I've told you about, he and I actually went to Vietnam at the same time on the same plane. We went to Zeon. I was just a private PFC. Well, he was a captain, but we just meshed. And when we went to Alpha Company, we went to Zeon, which was the headquarters for 1st Infantry Division. Next day, they said, you are going to Leigh to Alpha Company, 2nd Battalion, 20th Infantry. He was the company commander 6 months or so. Well, he and I just meshed. After we got out of the service, he found out I got, he actually called me, and we were talking and things of that sort. Well, a couple of months later, this was probably, I want to say it was like 2010, somewhere around that. He had a good friend. He stayed in the military. He retired colonel, and he had a real good friend that lived in Ohio. Larry Beck was an avid golfer, plays golf all the time. And this colonel, one of Larry's golf buddies.
Oh, man.
They did foursomes. Well, Don Sawtell went to visit his friend. Well, they're all playing golf, and something was said about Vietnam. And Larry said, yeah, well, I was in Vietnam. And Don Sawtell said, I was too. He said, who were you with? And Larry said, I was with Delta Company, 2nd Battalion, 28th Infantry. He said, you got to be kidding me. Don told Larry that I was, Alpha Company, 2nd Battalion, 28th Infantry. Then I went to the rear like an S2 officer. And they were talking. He said, when were you there? Don Sawtell, he mentioned that he was there in like May 66, 67. Larry said, yeah, we came over 67. We came over for the Delta Company. Don Sawtell knew about Delta Company because he was one of the rear commanders. And they were talking, and something came up and mentioned names. Larry was talking about, people. They said, and my name was Larry. Don't bother me. Larry was talking to Don and said, yeah, Mike Stubbs. But I did that. I saved his life like 3 times. And then Don said, Mike Stubbs is alive. Talked to him recently. And
so that's how Larry found out you were alive?
Alive. It's such a small world. It's amazing. And Don, when he got back home, he sent me an email. He said, Mike, you might want to contact this guy. He says he thinks he knows you. And I said, well, I don't know what happened to me the day but only a few names I could remember.
It's trauma.
I just didn't want to remember, I guess. And so I said, I'll contact him. I sent Larry a message. And it was less than 5 minutes. Email came back to me. Mike, you were my squad leader. And same thing with Ron Clark. Ron Clark found out, like I said, these 2 guys thought I was dead. Ron Clark had a cork board in his kitchen. He had a little thing on it, my name on it. And he said every morning he went in there and thanked me, saving his life. I'm sorry. Stuff gets never goes away.
That's how God works, though.
Yeah, I know. Amazing. But these 2 fellas, like I said, I mentioned to you about, I'm not involved. I received the Silver Star for what I did.
And what's the Silver Star?
Silver Star is basically the 3rd highest medal you can get. There's the Medal of Honor, then there's the Distinguished Service Cross, then the Silver Star. You got to do something extraordinary to receive these. Clark Welch had written me up that afternoon on October the 9th, when they got back to the NDP, the Night Defensive Position. Him and Bud Barrow got together and they wrote up a statement about what I did that day. And they turned it into the S2 officer. Never followed up on the stuff because 8 days later, our whole company's almost wiped out. And I worked come back. Like I said, I was going to go to OCS. Clark Welch had already talked to another lieutenant who had been a sergeant with OCS, came back. And I was so gung-ho and I'd already filled out paperwork, already qualified. I was going to go to Fort Lewis, Washington, OCS, because I only had 20 days left on my tour when I got my third one.
Oh.
My tour was almost over. I was already had my paperwork transferring to Fort Lewis, Washington, to go to Officers Candidate School. I knew I would go back to Vietnam as an infantry lieutenant. I would be probably 23, 24 years old, but I would know what I was doing. Most of those lieutenants, they were green. They didn't know. We called them 90-day wonders. A lot of them come out of college, ROTC, and they were made little second lieutenants. Clark Welch had put me and two other sergeants for battlefield promotion to E6 because we're doing the jobs of E6s and E7 as E5s. And Jim Gillum was one of them, the third guy in the battle on October the 17th, 8 days after I was wounded. Jim Gillum was all shot up real bad. And the other sergeant, well, I didn't even know about the battle because I'm in the hospital in Japan being treated, and they didn't tell you about anything that's happening in the unit.
Right.
Well, I had to go in more surgery. My neck had got infected, so we're going to have to open my neck back up. And it was so ironic. I'm in a room, myself and 5 other GI soldiers laying there. Everyone's getting ready to have some type of surgery. Each one of us had a nurse assigned to us. The next thing I know, here comes a doctor walking in the room. I looked at him. It was Oriental, because I had Vietnam on my.
Sure.
And he said, "Where's Sergeant Stubbs?" And the nurse said, "He's right over here." Well, they'd already shot us up in morphine. We were feeling it. Everyone was we didn't have any pain. He got to talk, and he said, "Would you like to watch this procedure?" I said, "Sure." So, he's going to take me to the operating. But as they're rolling me down the hallway to go to the operating, here comes another gurney with a soldier on it. The guy, I was laying on my back. I wasn't paying attention. It was Jim Gillum. Jim Gillum hollered my name. Jim and I were friends. We both came from Alpha Company to Delta. Jim had been like me, had been in Nam for a while. And we got to talking for a few minutes. Said, let's talk to each other. And Jim said, "By the way, you heard about our promotion?" And I said, I hadn't even thought of it. They removed us from the promotion list. We were of no more value to the. What made me the maddest, the third sergeant, they could have given him the promotion. Wouldn't have cost him a penny. But give him that recognition, give it to the family, because it could have been on his tombstone.
Absolutely.
Staff Sergeant such and. But they didn't do that. And that really bothered me. And finally, when I got to Fort Bragg, Womack, and I was in a medical holding company when they finally released me from the hospital. And a couple of weeks, they told me they had my orders for Fort Lewis, Washington to go to. I'm not going. I said, "What do you mean you're not going?" I said, "I'm not going." And I explained to them why the way I felt. They said, "Where would you like to go? What would you like to do?" Well, I don't want to go 3,000 miles away all the way to Fort Lewis, Washington. I like to go to Fort Jackson, 110 miles from home. And they said, "Okay, we'll see what we can do." Well, next thing I know, I'm going to Fort Jackson. And I had never thought about it. Grandparents lived in Southport, and they had Sunny Point. And they had, in Southport, they had a little area there at Fort Johnston, which is original Fort Johnston during the Civil Wars. They had living spaces that the military that oversaw Fort Sunny Point, the ammo position place that all the ammo goes to Vietnam, just 10 miles from Southport. And I said, I never thought about that. I wished I had thought about that. And I would have went to Southport. But I go to Fort Jackson, and I finally get there. And next thing I know, I'm a drill sergeant until I got out. But what was so ironic, starting the process out, well, they came up to me and they said, my company commander, the one that's over the drills, the basic training company that I was a drill sergeant, we said, "We got a phone call from brigade." He said, if you'll re-enlist and stay in, we'll give you that stripe. I said it in a nice way, but I said, "Thank you, but no thank you." Because I never did like what they did. That was just so wrong. I mean, hear men do their job, and you don't promote them because they're no more value. It wouldn't have cost the division any.
Right.
But I would have had it. And the thing about Jim Gillum, that he was, the only thing that saved his life was the radio on his back. He was a sergeant, but he was carrying the radio on October the 17th, 1967 for the Forward Observer for Delta Company, who received the Medal of Honor. That what he, pretty incredible, sacrificed his life, saved these other people. His hands shot off. He's actually working the radio with a nub.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, amazing. And Jim, right next to him, Jim, there were so many bullets that hit that radio. That's what saved him. He got hit in his legs. several times. He had to learn to walk and everything. Yeah. But just so many things happened. And then what Larry and Ron, and I didn't know about this. They felt like my medal should have been up. And I had a lot of people tell me that. I've had a few generals that I know tell me this, read the story and knows what happened. One of my, Troy Oliver, who was my first platoon leader in Vietnam, I mean, I'm 110 pounds, but then when I get to Vietnam, he puts the M60 machine gun on. But
what did that thing weigh?
30 pounds plus 400 rounds of ammunition I carried.
So a third of your weight you were carrying around.
Right. Plus my backpack and everything else I carried. Also carried 400 rounds of ammunition. I was determined not to run out of a battle or a firefight. But he and I, we met. We still communicate. We talk all the time. He retired a major general. He lived in Alabama. He lives in Alabama. He was over at all the guards in Alabama. Retired a major general. Real super nice guy. I could give you his number. You call him, and he would talk, and he always talked about me because I never complained about carrying that machine gun. Everybody else complained about something all the time. I just never complained. And what was so funny, I guess the only time I think I probably might have ever said something, run into a bunch of bamboo. We had to go through this bamboo. You know what bamboo is. You know how thick it is.
It's awful.
It's awful. And here I am humping an M60 machine gun, plus my backpack, plus everything else that I was carrying.
How do you go through bamboo like that? With a machete?
You have to chop it. Well, I'm going through and I look up over my head. The old country boy from North Carolina, I wasn't scared of snakes. Never bothered. I mean, I catch them now and release them. I looked up and there's the most beautiful green snake you've ever seen.
Oh.
Had a long, slender body. It's like the old green snakes that you've seen. You're a country girl. You know what I'm talking about. And but I looked up, I knew his head was about that wide, but his body was about, I knew that it was a pit
different
viper.
Kind of snake.
It was a bamboo viper. Thank goodness they're not aggressive. I mean, I looked up and he could have fell right down on me.
But he was not in you,
I
as it
warned
turns
the people
out.
behind me, said, go around this. The snake never moved, thank goodness. Because we had snakes over there that were something else. The Viet Cong would actually sometimes put them in the tunnels.
They did?
To deter us from going into the tunnel. Yeah, things of that sort. Because I'll tell you a funny story in a little bit about one of my tunnel situations. But like I said, these two gentlemen, they're wanting to see it get upgraded. They've actually gone and gotten statements from other men that were there that day. Ron went all the way to Mississippi. Talked to Ike Eichert, who was the guy that I picked up and carried out on my shoulder. He was my grenadier, and got a statement from Ike about what transpired that day. And they've got several statements. And what makes no sense is they're both Republicans. I mean, I tell everybody these are two very patriotic, Republican, combat wounded Vietnam Purple Heart veterans. They cannot get a senator. They have contacted. They had Senator Brown. They had met with a party, a group of people in Ohio that helps fill out paperwork, like a veterans service officer. And they got all this information. They even met with Brown's people and a live testimony of what happened. And well, Brown didn't get reelected. He was a Democrat. He did not get reelected. Well, he didn't do a thing. He didn't even, finally Larry, they would finally get the paperwork back from him. But he did nothing. And
none of this should be partisan. This is just taking care of the people who do things.
Exactly. And they got two new senators in Ohio. And neither one of them, they've contacted their offices. They don't call them back. They don't do anything. They don't know why they won't do anything. It just makes no sense. Well, I was at a veterans coffee a few weeks ago, and Senator Budd, one of his representatives there, I talked to her a little bit, told her what was going on. I said, that I'm not involved. I mean, these fellows, they told me what they were going to do. And I said, I can't really do anything. But talked to her. Well, I put her in touch with her. And I think Ron Clark is supposedly going to be driving all the way to Ohio to Bud's office in Vance, bring them the paperwork personally. And Senator Tillis knows me. We know each other. And he's actually got some people that they have talked to about some. But it's a situation where they can't seem to get anybody. It's got to go through a senator. It can't go through a congressman because it's so old. Usually medals are done within, weeks or within a year or so. And
Except
like
that your
time,
paperwork got
my paperwork, because Clark
left in the
Welch,
pile.
got rest of the pile. And they actually have Clark Welch's statement. Clark Welch, what happened with Clark Welch was when I retired from actually Lucent Technologies, which Dale South and it became Lucent Technologies. They kept changing names when after they did the split up.
Hey, that was a hot stock in 1997. That was a real big deal.
Well, in '83, when they did the split up of the Bell system, I went to Southern Bell, and because of the type of work I did, I retired in 2000. Well, when I retired, I went to work for Icon, which they did computers and machines, but they started doing telecommunications. Well, I went to work for them as like an area manager for their communications part. Well, Columbia, South Carolina was one of my locations. And we were replacing all the phone systems in all the high schools in Columbia, South Carolina area. Well, I would go down and I'd visit my guys on the job. And I got up one Saturday morning. I said, Carolyn, I don't know why I want to ride down. I had not been to Fort Jackson since I got out in June of '68. I would go to Columbia. They had a road went right through the base. Anybody, that's before 9/11, before they got real tight on security, had a road went right through the middle of Fort Jackson. It goes to the other side of Columbia. I would not go through the base. I did not want to. I would go around, take the long way around. I said, Carolyn, I want to ride down. So we got up, went down to Fort Jackson. I'm riding around, and I wanted to see if they kept something. That was on what they call Tank Hill. That was the old World War II barracks. That's where, when I was a drill sergeant, that's where we trained the trainees. And so we're getting ready to leave. I'm going up a little side road to head out to get back on 77 to head north to Charlotte. I said, you got to be kidding me. It said 2nd Battalion, 28th. Black line. Can't be. I said, Carolyn, I got to go in here for a minute. I walk in the building. Well, there's two trainees, what they call orderly room orderly, on a Saturday. And they said, they saw me and I didn't have on a uniform. They said, can we help you, sir? And I said, I told them I said, I just want to walk around a little bit. Told them. Well, they said, here come two drill sergeants. They walked by. They said, sir, can we help you? I said, no, sir, I just want to look around. I said, this was my unit in Vietnam. They said, what? I said, yes, I live in Charlotte now. And this was my unit in Vietnam. And we got to talking. They said, you need to come back and meet our battalion commander. And next thing I know, came back on a Monday, and I went to the base. I met the battalion commander, and we got to talking. She said, I want you to go with me. I want to feed you lunch today. I said, okay. So we went to mess hall. And next thing I know, he's introducing me to trainees, vessel, and talked a little bit, and then went back to his office. We're sitting there talking. He says, by the way, there's going to be a Black Lion reunion here at Fort Jackson. So I didn't know anything about it. Also, the 1st Battalion, 28th Infantry, it's also a basic. Had both 1st of the 28th and 2nd of the 28th basic training battalions. And he said, going to be a lot of people coming. I said, well, they actually had an organization, Black Lion organization. I didn't enjoy at the time. And we got to talking. He said, there's going to be a lot of people here. You might want, there's only a few people that I would. My best friend was Luther. Luther was a career soldier. He was the platoon sergeant, and I was assistant platoon sergeant. We called each other Bubba. And, you've run into somebody that has a nickname, Bubba. I've run into a couple of people. No, I will not call you Bubba. I said, what? I explained to him why. I said, Luther, he called me Bubba. I called him. Nobody else was Bubba. We were that close. Luther was married. He had 2 daughters. And his wife was pregnant, their 3rd child. And 8 days after me, Luther was killed. What happened with Luther, he was carrying all the smoke grenades. He actually basically took a direct hit from a rocket. All the smoke grenades on him exploded. He probably suffocated.
Oh, my God.
Even his leg was also blown off the rocket. He would have died from that problem. Yeah. But Luther, well, the day I was wounded, I remember walking by, and there's a little lieutenant. I don't even want to discuss him. But when I'm walking by, Luther saw me carrying Ike, pulling his teeth. He said, what in the world happened, Bubba? And I said, one of those, I won't use all the full words. I said, one of those little SOBs got me. The last thing I ever got to say to Luther. And took me years and years. I kept trying to find Luther's family after I got out of the service.
Yeah.
Could not find them. Luther Smith. I mean, how many Smiths is it? I didn't realize how many Luther Smiths there was. And what was so crazy, another fellow was doing podcast about names on the wall. And somehow somebody had told him about me, and we did a podcast. Well, he had found Luther's family.
Oh, you're Luther. You're
my Luther's family. He knew that because he was on the committee that investigated all the names, families, things of that sort. He says, he put me in touch with Luther's oldest daughter, and we talk. Matter of fact, he just sent me a text message the other day because all the storms, wanted to make sure I wasn't going to be messed up by the storms and things of that sort. We text all the time. But Luther's wife, she had the baby. She never remarried or anything. Raised those 3 girls. The daughter, I've sent her pictures. I've actually put her in touch with other men that was with our unit that knew Luther. I've got a text group. I can actually, it's just a unique text group. All of my guys in Vietnam that was in there. This is it right here. There's 8 of them. Here's the group details. Russell, he was with me in Alpha. I was Alpha Company. He transferred to Delta, and I was his squad leader in Alpha, also in Delta. And then Dave Aldridge, Dave was wounded that day. Harold Wachter was the little lieutenant I was telling you about, and Ike Eichert, Jim Gillum, Larry Beckwith, Ron Clark, and Troy Oliver, who was my team. We text back and forth when little things happen.
That's your whole text thread of heroes.
Right. But I sent them the information about Luther's daughter. Some of them have talked to her.
So she got adopted by a whole bunch of dads.
Exactly. And she's learned how men really felt about. I mean, I loved her dad. I'll be honest with you. We were like brothers.
Right.
And we were that close. And it really broke my heart when I found out what happened to him. But back to Fort Jackson, talking to the battalion commander, he said, well, I said, I'd like to be able to, people I'd like to see was Luther, Clark Will, Bud Barrow, a couple other names. He said, but I know Clark Welch was killed 8 days after me. And he says, Mike, I talked to Clark Welch Friday. He said, yeah, Clark Welch is one of them as far as this get together. He's involved with it. You got to be kidding me. And this, I'd been on a Monday. Well, I went back on a Friday. And that's when we were talking about all this, Friday of the same week. And that's when he told me about Clark Welch being alive.
Now, why did you think Clark was dead?
Because
was he in that same firefight Luther was in?
On the 17th, yes. Clark Welch, he should have got an MOH that day, the things he did. He had a bicep muscle shot off, shot in the chest, shot in the leg, wounded 3 or 4 times. Finally kept doing things till he'd lost so much blood, sat down beside a tree. And what's so crazy about it, he sit down beside a tree, and like I said, there's 64 men. Everybody else is wounded. And the Viet Cong were actually coming in there, and some of the wounded that were not dead, they were shooting. Finishing them off. And Clark Welch is sitting up against a tree. Bud Barrow's all shot up. He's over against another tree. And what's so funny, the last thing Clark Welch remembered seeing was he looked at Bud Barrow. Bud Barrow had an M60 beside of him that he had gotten because the M60 machine gunner had been killed. So he had the machine gun, first sergeant. And he aimed it toward Clark Welch. So Clark Welch started to get ready to shoot him. Mm-hmm. Well, what it was a Viet Cong standing there with a knife going to cut sheath for Clark Welch's backpack and stuff. He was going to take all that stuff. Well, Bud Barrow blew him away. And, but I went home. Colonel Halls, that was the colonel at Fort Jackson Battalion. Colonel Halls, he said, Mike, you ought to give old Clark a call. He gave me his phone number. I went home that Friday evening. I called Clark. We talked for 3.5 hours. And that's when, he told me about, we were talking about October the 9th because of what happened that day. And because I'm proud of what he said in his book. He mentions in his book about October the 9th, that what happened. He said, Stubbs got hurt. I lost one of my best fighters. And I'll never forget that. But we talked, and he told me about, I was asking him, I said, well, you know what happened on the 9th? I said, some guys did some really heroic stuff. And I don't know if anybody ever got any decorations. He said, a couple of people were putting in for a couple of medals, a couple of Bronze Stars. I said, you get yours. I said, get my what? He said, Silver Star. We worked you up for the Silver Star. I said, no, I didn't know anything about it. So what happened then, he got with a couple other people. He got with Jim Shelton, who was a major at the time when all this was going on. Jim was an S2 officer. He didn't ever go out on the battles with us around. He was always in the chopper above us. And they got and wrote it up, and Clark wrote the statement about what happened then. and he got it to Jim and so on. And Jim did this and wrote some things up, and then they sent it to Sam Irvin.
Yeah.
And they put a big rush on it because this was I want to say February, March timeframe. The Union was going to be in April, and they wanted. I didn't know it, but they wanted to present that medal to me at the reunion, and I found out about it. But actually, so ironic, Sam Irvin, the Department of the Military, sends the medal to me. That's how it got presented in the mail.
There you go.
Instead of anybody from the military presenting it like it's supposed to be done.
Very distinctive.
Right, very distinctive.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So what they did, they had the reunion at Fort Jackson on a Memorial Day weekend. And Mike Koza, our church,
yeah.
Mike found out about this. He took a whole news team from Charlotte, WBTV, and stayed the whole weekend with us, talking to people and doing this. And then that day we had the parade. Myself and Clark Welch and a few others, and Jim Shelton were up on the stage and so on. And then parade's over when we go down on the field. Clark Welch also Silver Star. I said, nobody will pin it on me but Clark Welch, and Clark Welch pinned the Silver Star on me that day. And my whole family.
Oh, perfect.
Oh, God. It's just a day that day I'll never forget. So much, has happened, like I said, with this situation. I don't know what these fellas, like I said, Ron, I don't know if he's done it yet or when he's going to do it, but he goes to Tennessee a lot, pitching forwards. He said he's going to drive down, meet with Bud's people.
Well,
and I
Senator
mentioned
Bud's
about getting them on the phone, and they could tell about the stuff. 'Cause it's not that much. I can't say that. I just I've read some of the statements by guys and things of that sort.
Well, I feel like Senator Cindy Hyde-Smith in Mississippi would be interested in this, and she could hear from Ike directly. So if any of y'all are in Mississippi and can connect us with Senator Hyde-Smith, she's a good guy.
Yeah. And Troy Oliver, he knows about all this. Got a copy of all the information, what happened.
Well, and Senator Bernie Moreno, who took over for Sherrod Brown, you would think Bernie be about this.
You would think, and he's one of them that Larry and Ron have contacted and haven't gotten anything back from
Maybe
him.
They go buy a car from one of his dealerships. He'll call them back. So.
Yeah, maybe so. It's just strange that no one is responding to these two Purple Heart Vietnam veterans about something that they're wanting to do.
Well, I mean, the Vietnam veterans, sadly, are used to being ignored. So
yes.
I guess ignored's better than spit on.
Yeah, because I've got a speech that when we do the honor flight, I do at the wall. I'll make sure they understand. It was nobody in my family knew what I did. I never talked about it. It was 22 years later before I ever told anybody. What happened was Carol and I were Saturday night, Lee Greenwood. He had a variety music show, which everybody loves Lee Greenwood. And God bless the USA. We went to his theater, and he wasn't there that night. Mm-hmm. But they gave me some contact information where I could actually send him a letter. I sent him a letter. He said, I've still got the letter. He sent me a letter back stating that song was basically written for the Vietnam.
I didn't know that.
Oh, yes. It's kind of like an anthem for us anyway. That's one reason he wrote it, because he knew how we were treated. And it's just so much has transpired. I don't know what these fellows are doing a lot. Marino, I don't understand why they won't contact him back. He's a Republican. These guys are Republican. Like you said, party should have no matter whatsoever. But I don't want him to go into politics. The way I feel about some things.
We're not going to go there because we could go into a lot of places.
We could talk for hours and hours about it.
But politics. We do have some listeners who might not know what a tunnel rat is. Tell us how did you get that job? What was entailed?
Well, you had to basically be a small person. You couldn't be.
Well, you definitely qualify for that.
Right. And, the Vietnamese, the Viet Cong, so they were a little bit, just like this battle that day with the 60s. Whenever the Viet Cong come back in there after the battle, they're walking around, all the dead men. They said they couldn't believe how big the Americans were compared to them. But tunnel, what it was, these tunnels have been there for a long time. They had these tunnels when they fought the French back in the late 40s and 50s. The French basically ruled Vietnam. And that was their hiding place. They could go underground and you couldn't get them. We found a tunnel complex. We had to search it. Sometimes you'd go in, they would actually fire a shot letting you know they were there. You would leave. So we could drop tear gas in there. And
a shot from inside the tunnel?
Yeah, they would. And I would go in the tunnels looking for the enemy. And there's Times I did some things, like I said, I will never go into detail about some of the things I had to do. And there's one statement written up about me where I did go in, I had to kill one and I captured 2 others and got them out, able to interrogate them.
All right, how tall are these tunnels? If you're going to get a man
Well,
out,
when you
you're not
start-
talking like army crawl short, are you?
Well, when you start in the tunnels, most of the time, you got to find the entrance. Usually they would put a cap over it. It looked like the ground and things. Sometimes you could find one where it had been tipped a little bit or something. But when you start out, just barely could get in the hole and move. I mean, you're down almost crawling. And you keep on going, the tunnels, the complexes, you get big, you can walk around them. Just amazing. I mean, we actually found a hospital.
Really?
Yes. And this hospital was powered by a bicycle. That's how they generated power for the lights. They did surgery on their wounded, things of that sort. Underground.
Well, how did they get the equipment down there? Did they close off their heavy spaces?
They didn't have just one entrance. They had other entrances.
Oh
These tunnels, they might have several entrances.
Powered by bicycle.
Yeah. They might have an entrance big enough a person can walk and things like this, walk in and out. But, we had trouble finding.
All right. So what do you do when you find a hospital? Because obviously that's the enemy, but you have a human heart for somebody that's injured.
Well, no,
or do you just compartmentalize and wipe it out and don't think about it?
Basically, what happened that day, that's one of them we started, and they fired shots. So we knew there was people in there. So we pulled back. We didn't go back till the next day after we had dropped some tear gas and grenades down into the tunnel and stuff. Well, they actually vacated.
Okay.
Vacated. We found a lot of uniforms, found bloody items, things of that sort. But they had pretty much taken everything after that complex. So
I had no idea they had underground hospitals.
People have they sometimes just Google Vietnam tunnels, and because it'll show you how they're built. They cooked in there. They did everything. And what's so ironic, I had to take my guys out when we're out in the jungle in DPs. Every other night, I had to take my squad set them up on an ambush. We would move out maybe anywhere from 50 to 100 to 200 meters from the rest of the company, set up an ambush in case the enemy tried to approach the rest of the company during the night. And monsoon season, talking rain. People have no idea what rain is here. It's like it was last year when we got all the rain during the hurricane. That's the way it is every day for a few months. Called it the monsoon.
Now, wait a minute. Do the tunnels not fill up with water during the monsoon?
No.
They knew how to cap it off.
They knew how to cap it off and keep the water from coming in the tunnels. These tunnels are amazing.
So they had a dry place to go, and y'all didn't.
Yes. They're sitting in a dry place. We're in an ambush site because you couldn't carry a poncho. I wouldn't let guys carry a poncho. You know what rain sounds like hitting a poncho?
Loud.
Like a tin roof. They could carry a poncho with a liner, but it gets soaking wet. It got pretty cool at night. But the worst part about like I said, Charlie's in these tunnels probably laughing at us, knowing we're getting soaking wet. But the worst part about the ambushes at nighttime during the monsoon, usually around midnight, the rain would stop. You almost time it, what time it was going to start, what time it was going to stop. That's when the mosquitoes would. And I said, I'm afraid 2 or 3, these things were like buzz bombs. They would just up. 2 or 3 of them was going to pick me up one day and carry me off. They were that bad. But, that's the same things we had to do. A couple times I had to move an ambush I had set up because of fire ants. Those fire ants over there were nothing like these little usual expression called hiss ants. That they can bite you. They bite and they hurt. It itches. Over there, they had stingers. These were big. I mean, they built tombs. These fire ants, it could be as tall as a person. You could hide behind them in a firefight. Bullets didn't go through them. They amazing. What some of the
that sounds worse than the bamboo vipers.
Yeah. Well, I know. As one night I was we were guarding a road and I had laid down. Had another guy staying awake on guard duty at the position, and felt something. I woke up and here's a rat on me.
Oh.
And then there was 2 down close to my feet. These were jungle rats. They were not like little mice, like little field mice. They were huge, and I think it scared the rat as bad as it did me. He run off, but I don't know what he was getting ready to do. If I hadn't woke up, I don't know if he was getting ready to bite me or what.
I don't know, but little as you were, there wasn't much meat on your bones.
Wasn't much
maybe
meat
they
anyway.
were looking for somebody else.
Probably couldn't find anything to eat. Yeah, but just some of the stories, like you mentioned. I'll tell you one funny story about the tunnel. But we something that we didn't do in Vietnam. We did the small ambushes, patrols, squad, and things of that sort. They never took a large group at nighttime, move a large group of us at nighttime, our military, the Army. But when they decided they wanted to, out close to Zion was another small village, which they knew was heavily infiltrated, had a lot of Viet Cong, But see, the Viet Cong, you didn't know who they were. You were in a village because they were like civilians. They didn't carry ID, dog tags, and things like we had. So they decided one night that they wanted to surround this village. So they planned it out. What they did, they choppered us in, our whole company, Alpha Company, they choppered us in close to the area, a few miles from it, put us down in an open area. So we had to walk that night a couple of miles to get to that village. The village has some high dikes. We surrounded the village. They didn't know we were. So here come a couple of them coming out of the village. Knew they were VC. They had their weapons in there. They opened fire and killed them. That rest of that night, nothing else happened because of that. So they didn't try to leave. Well, the next morning, we're going to search the village. We start going through the village. And next thing we know, we were walking along and I looked over and I saw cover. I flipped it. Nothing happened. So I knew right then I was going to have to go in. So I had to go down into this. This was not actually a tunnel. This turned out to be a big room, just a big room under. And I could smell him so much. It had a distinctive smell. And I said something. He said, I couldn't understand him. He couldn't understand me. He could have shot me right then. Didn't, because he knew what was outside the hole. Well, finally, struggled with him a little bit. I got him to go out of the hole. And we had Arvin soldiers, which is the South Vietnamese Army. We had S3 people, which, do interrogations, talking to people and so on. Got him out. He claimed he was just an old farmer. He got in the hole to hide because he was scared.
Sure.
Well, he kept wanting his pants because he didn't have his pants on. Well, I go back in there to see what else is in the hole, and his pants was full of money.
Oh.
And he had documentation. He had basically the names of everybody in that village that were making donations. He was like a tax collector.
Right.
For the Viet Cong. He was basically equal to the rank of a captain. We got all the documentation out and so on. And they took him off to interrogate him. So we started moving again. We hadn't gone another 20 yards. Here's another one. You see it because there was no grass or anything. Flipped it, here come a grenade out.
Oh.
So we all scattered. The grenade goes off. We knew right then, whoever's in this hole is not coming in. So knew what was going to happen. So we started trying to throw grenades in the hole. And one would get close, it'd go off. Finally, a couple of them went in. He threw them out.
Oh.
And one time
but you had the pin out. He does that fast of reflexes.
Fast reflex to throw them back out. Well, finally, we got one to go in the hole. It stayed. It went off. Well, it killed two of them immediately. There was a third one. He was messed up pretty bad. I actually got pictures of that guy. Well, what's so ironic? One time he thought we shot his left hand off.
Oh.
He started throwing out with the right. And so we finally knew they were taken care of because the grenades were off. Nothing else happened. So I knew what happened then. I had to go into the hole, pull those bodies out. There wasn't much left. I can show you the picture if you see it. Okay. But he was blown in half. Got his body out, got the other one out. Third one that was wounded pretty bad. He was still alive. Got him out, and they started trying to interrogate him. Well, he died right then. Well, I knew right then I was going to have to go down in that time. So I got all my gear off, got my flashlight, my pistol. And I started down in the hole, and one of my guys was going to go with me. Not only that was a volunteer thing, I was there.
Oh, okay.
Because there's guys, claustrophobia would never, they said.
Was it volunteer or voluntold? They say
volunteer.
You're going to do this?
No, because I was a sergeant.
You could have opted out.
I couldn't tell my men to do it if I wouldn't do it. But
that's leadership.
Exactly. And plus, I was a small guy, like I said. And what they did finally, after I left Vietnam, they actually started a group called Tunnel Rats. That's what this emblem is right here. And this, probably, Latin?
I know what it looks like.
Okay, well, that's Latin. Non gratum.
So nothing free?
Rhododendron. You know what that means? That's the reason they did it in Latin.
Nothing free without a rat?
No, not worth a rat's ass.
Oh, not worth a rat's ass. I had to know right.
Right. That's the reason they did it that way in Latin, because
it's classier.
Yeah, right, exactly. Well, classier, plus most people.
Well,
everybody was French and Spanish.
Then you're delicate, keep the ladies happy.
Exactly. But back to the tunnel, I go down into the tunnel. One of my men's going to go with me and follow me. I told him, I said, come to a little where it broke off with two different. I'm not going to split up because something happened to me. I hit a booby trap. You got to pull me out, or vice versa. I may have to pull you out. We kept going, went about another 30 yards, and I got to like a little door. It was actually a well. That was another one of their ways into this little tunnel area they had. So I said, this is the end. Let's pull out. We'll go back. I reached out, I felt something. And I felt it, and he just laying there. I shine my light, big snake laying. I said, well, let's go back out. We had to crawl back out to where we came in. I pulled a snake with me.
Because why not?
Well, I got back to the hole. He goes out first, and I'm there. And I said, look, guys, I threw the snake out. Everybody scattered. Well, the snake just laid there, never moved. And what happened was, you don't understand why I did what I did, grabbing the snake, because I wasn't feeling no pain at all. I was happy. The BC in that hole had been smoking marijuana.
Oh, so the snake was stoned?
His snake was stoned, just like those guys were stoned. That's why he didn't feel any pain. We shot his hand off. And
so it wasn't just his persistence and perseverance.
No,
he couldn't feel it.
He didn't feel it. But finally, when we got out of the hole, we come out. The other guy and myself, we were as happy as we could be. But we were breathing that same air that they had been smoking and stuff like that. Snake like.
So is that why he didn't bite you? Because this was a viper, right?
It was. I don't know what kind of snake it was. Multicolored. Okay. I mean, I was feeling good. But I tell everybody, when we came out of that tunnel, we were feeling as high as Georgia pines, feeling no pain. What was so funny? The guys would walk up to us, wanting to smell our uniform because it smelled like marijuana. We actually had to get them to bring us another uniform so we could change out of it.
Good.
The smell.
Well, I guess no ventilation down there.
No ventilation whatsoever. Yeah, and that stayed in. The smoke was still in the hole. And that viper, or that snake, whatever type it was, he was limp as a noodle. And just little things like that. That's one of the funny things. I mean, what wasn't all funny because of what happened having to kill these fellows. But part of the human nature is to see something and say, this is kind of funny and interesting. In the middle of all the chaos, you have to take note of it. Oh, yeah. I mean, even Don Saltail, he was right there at the hole when they come out and stuff. He said, he knew what it was. But see, I didn't know what. I'd never heard.
Right.
Like I said, old country boy from North Carolina, I didn't know that type of stuff.
No, some people called it rabbit weed, but
they grew it.
We were.
Yeah, they grew it over there, just like you grow your parsley in your flower pot in your backyard, things of that sort. But it was something else.
So this was 1967.
Yeah.
So how old were you? 19.
I was 19, turned 20 in Vietnam. Yeah.
So what do you think it would look like today if 19-year-olds had to go get into a tunnel?
I think the ones that in the military, certain branches could do it. Because I do know one person that was in the military that got out because he said people in there, a lot of them in there now don't even have the bones. He said what he's meaning the strength to do what needs to be done. Pretty unique to hear him say that he just didn't really want to take the chance of trust these people. Because in Vietnam, you took care of each other.
Didn't want to take the chance of having to trust them. So that's probably the bigger difference between you and your guys who are on a text thread now and how quickly people turn on each other now for the sake of clicks and taps and social media.
Exactly. It's a different world. And I'm just hoping, I know they're rebuilding our military, making it stronger. Just like the other day when I know you probably know about the meeting they had up in Virginia.
I loved it.
I did too.
If the leadership doesn't talk to the leadership, how do you expect the rank and file to respond?
Exactly. He expressed what he said to these fellas. He put it like it needed to be.
Yeah, he was blunt.
Right. You don't need wusses in the military.
Right.
You gotta strong so that you can do your job.
And frankly, I think people are stronger when they're expected to be strong instead of when you allow the bar to get so lower that you expect people to be weak, because you're going to get out of them what you hold them to.
Exactly.
Just like you held your guys to a standard to keep them alive.
Correct.
And then didn't walk away from them. And then your guys had your back afterwards too.
Yeah. I got a picture I want to find. I was firm with my guys. I mean, couldn't be their buddy. And
because somebody has to give
there's
orders.
a picture, and the reason I can't, you'll see what's happening there.
You're a baby.
Exactly.
Look at baby Mike. The light's going to miss. Very good. There's
But
baby
what happened
Mike.
was we'd been on a mission. We'd lost a couple of men. They brought us back to a base camp.
Is this in the jungle or at the
No,
edge?
this is at the edge. They brought us back to a large base camp, and gonna give us a couple of days break, rest, because we've been in the jungle like 3 weeks. And all my men just locked down, threw off their backpacks, threw their weapons down, threw the steel pots off, started eating the sea ration. And I walked over and I saw my M60 machine gun that was assigned to me. I had assigned to one of my men. Hell, it's filthy. I picked it up. I said, nobody takes another bite. You clean your weapon. I said, even though we're on a break, we're subject to be 5 minutes now. They could call and say, we got to go right back out. And what was so funny, somebody hollered my name. And as you know, we kind of had an attitude over. Probably seeing the picture that I was giving him the hey sign.
Oh, I did not notice that.
Yeah.
You're right. I thought maybe your finger had the arthritis.
Yeah, it had arthritis finger, yeah. But it's just funny. And I wish that wasn't in the picture because I've had people I wanted to send this picture.
I bet your mother gave you what for doing that?
No, I don't know if my mother even knew about it because, I just didn't tell my parents
Moms didn't handle that very well.
I didn't tell them about it. What was so ironic, my brother Bob, he bought all these Vietnam tapes and things like that. And I didn't. And he came to the house one night. He had one from Walter Cronkite.
Oh.
Walter Cronkite. And it was Fowler, the name of it. And he wanted to watch it. Mom and Dad, because I lived next door to Mom and Dad. Mom and Dad came over, and Bobby was there, and Carol and the girls, and a couple other people there. I don't remember who they were. I knew it was family, but I can't remember who it was. But I wasn't watching. I was kind of looking away as they were watching this. We're talking about it. And all of a sudden, Angie, she's like 5 or 6 years old. She said, Daddy, that looked like you. And it was the battle right here, this battle on June the 17th.
Let's show the book.
The major battle where we lost a lot of men that day. It's June the 17th, 67.
By David Hearn.
Yeah.
And we'll include all the links to the books in the show notes for this episode, make it easy for y'all to order them.
Battle of Zombo 2. And it was me. What happened was we had walked into a There was one battalion went second. The 12th went in front before us. We came in. We walked in. They came in on the choppers. The first 5 choppers that come into a LZ, which they consider to be a hot LZ because you don't know if the enemy's there or not, those choppers come in. They never completely hit the ground. The men jump out. 5 on each side, on line from each chopper, and you can fire into and even the guys, the machine gunners on the choppers are firing their M60s over the heads of the guys, and you're going to secure that area. Well, they go in, they secure the area. They think everything's calm. Next thing we know is just as soon as our battalion, 2nd 20th, walked into this big open area, well, heck, bro, they were up in trees. They were in fire holes because the GIs had laid their stuff and they were not ready. They were shooting guys. That battle went on for about 4 hours.
Did y'all lose?
I don't the number. It talks about it in the book, but just like right here, all these names on here, these are guys that died that day. Yeah, that died that day. But what on the thing was they had assigned the M60, a 50 caliber machine gun to our company, Alpha Company, back in base camp, and they assigned it to our platoon. So then Troy Oliver, he had already gone to the rear. But he had already, the new platoon leader, he's the one that taught me pretty much into going to OCS. Well, he had assigned the 50 caliber to my squad, which we couldn't carry in the jungle because it was too heavy. So it wasn't ever that thing. We had fun firing it and burning up rounds on the perimeter base camp. But next thing we know, here comes a chopper. He drops the 50 caliber machine gun into the middle of that opening. Next thing I know, Don Sawtails says, we got to set it up. Well, I'd already been the one that had already been firing, and everybody didn't fire a 50 caliber. So I had to take myself and 3 men go out and set up this 50 caliber. Here's Charlie shooting at us.
In the middle of the
firefight. And next thing I know, we get it set up. We started tearing it. Troy Oliver's back base camp as Battalion S2 officer. And he's hearing all the radio conversations and everything. And they're talking about how we kind of helped change the battle because we were tearing the treetops up. Charlie's up in the trees and stuff. But like I said, that battle was over. So many men died that day. We brought the medevac shot. And one thing that happened, Dan Rather, we never liked the news media with us on a mission. Something about it's almost like it felt like they called ahead to let Charlie know the news media is going to be there so they can get some documentation.
Some good video.
Well, this battle of Zombo 2, Dan Rather, nobody knew. He was nobody. He was a big
He
name.
was a baby too.
He was a baby too.
Yeah.
And him and his news group is there, and they actually all finally hit the ground because they were getting shot at too. But we had a medic who was working on wounded soldiers. Dan Rather crawled up to that medic, put the microphone in the medic's mouth and said, in
the middle of a firefight?
In the middle of a firefight. Said, "What are you doing for me?" He looked at Dan Rather and said, "If you don't take that microphone out of my face, I'm going to shoot you." I mean, he was trying to save this guy's life. The guy had a sunken chest wound. And, he died. But Dan Rather, I'll never forget that because his voice is on this video and stuff like that. It's amazing. And I can actually send you that video.
Well, I mean, y'all were the first war that was basically televised,
right?
Because
exactly.
Korea was still newspaper
right,
war.
Yeah,
World War II was propaganda and newspaper,
right.
But y'all were
every evening
far more accessible.
Something was on the news every evening, and just a lot of stuff. I mean, like I said, I saw a lot because I was there almost a year before I got my third one.
So let me ask you a question: when you grow up in a quiet rural country setting where you know everybody and everybody knows everybody and generally operates on trust and love, and then you go to the other side of the world where your life depends on trust, but these are people you've never known until right now. You've got an enemy that wants to kill you. You weren't raised to kill people, but you don't have any choice now.
Right.
What's it like to find yourself in that position? How do you compartmentalize it so that you can function? Because if you don't function, your guys are at risk.
Right.
You had no choice.
You just get the mental state that, is basically you are the enemy. I mean, your adrenaline is always high when you get into a firefighting battle, just like the day I got shot. I mean, when I first got hit, it knocked me down. I'm laying there, started spitting up blood. I had never seen a dead person. No one in my family had ever died, to go to a funeral.
Well, you were young.
Vietnam. Yeah.
You were a teenager.
Right. And I'm laying there and I started spitting up blood. And I always remember the saying that spitting up blood, I'd seen on TV. And then all of a sudden, something special happened that I know there's a God. I tell you that right
There's
now.
only one. There's a God. There's the God.
There's the God. You're exactly right. But he's got his guardian angels that looks over us. And something happened to me that day. But after I laid there for just a few seconds, next thing I know, I'm up. We got hit again. I started moving men that were wounded to a safe location where they wouldn't be hit again. I went and got a guy that was really, really messed up really bad, pulled him back. Then I started firing on the enemy, and there were snipers up in trees. I took care of them. They had Larry Beckwith pinned down. He had already been hit in the leg and the arm and the leg twice. And I took care of those snipers up in the trees and just kept doing things and moving people around.
Like you felt the armor of God around you? You felt angels?
Leigh.
You knew?
I don't tell everybody. I'll actually tell you one day at my house, I had our favorite pastor was there at the house talking to mom and dad and Carolyn and I, and we were talking. I said, I'd like to tell you something that happened to me. Because, I'd already heard about, I heard every once in a while I hear somebody talk about an out of body thing. Well, what happened? I'm laying there. You got claymores, you got grenades, you got automatic weapons firing. It got perfectly peaceful. No sound whatsoever. I'm not on the ground. All of a sudden, I'm kind of up a little bit, leaning up. There was a bright light. There is a person in front of this light. I could not see this person's face because the light was so bright. I could tell they were in like a gown or something. All that person said to me was, "Mike, everything will be all right." That's when I got up and started doing what. And I could hear the bullets going by. I never got hit again. And supposedly, I got credit for killing 13 that day. But for years and years, I did not know. And you were a deacon in the church. You were a deacon, I believe, when I was over the deacon part of the time. And when I was going to be ordained as a deacon, I kept saying, what am I going to do? My confession. Well, I did it on what happened that. But 2 weeks before I was to be ordained as a deacon, we sang a song in church, one line. And I often wondered what in the world happened to me. One line in that song answered every question. Had I seen this person's face, probably wouldn't be here now. Probably died. But good Lord, the way he does things, he waited all those many, many years before, and when I became a deacon, he answered my question, why I did not see him. Did not see the person's face. And it was just a few moments. It just happened so fast. But I couldn't tell people about it. But I told our pastor, he looked at me like I'd lost my mind. And I said, because
well, it's a little tough to be a Presbyterian, the whole frozen chosen side. If you told a Pentecostal pastor, he would have been speaking in tongues and been right with you.
Yeah, but it answered my question. And the night that I don't think you were probably in the room or not, because I know you have been a deacon, you've been everything in the church. But I started I couldn't read it. So the associate pastor had to get up and read. I mean, everybody. Tears. I mean, I didn't realize it was going to affect people like that. And
because Mike's everybody's looking for it. Everybody wants that clarifying moment.
Yeah.
And to hear you talk about yours gives them hope that they'll have one too.
Yeah.
Or maybe that they now recognize that they did have one and they couldn't put words behind it. Because that's one of the gifts you've been kept alive for, is to put words behind the moments that you've had. Because nothing is. And when God said he'd order our steps, it was because other people watched steps, whether it's testimony about seeing yourself in that role that God designed for you, or it's the testimony of being able to bring other men home to their families, or the testimony of talking to the ones who didn't get to see their dad come home.
Right.
It all adds up.
Well, it's just like, you mentioned Rusty Wallace. We were talking earlier. Rusty, he was in the room that night. He was going to become a deacon. He said, after hearing that, Mike, I'll never complain about a bad day at work. Mm-hmm. And I really, truly believe it was many, many years later before like I said, I mentioned earlier about the Leigh Greenwood thing. I don't think I finished, but Carol and I are sitting there watching the show. And all of a sudden, at the end of the show, he had 8 country music singers. Each one started singing a part of God Bless the USA.
Oh.
Charlie Daniels was number 8. I'm sitting at a counter doing some paperwork. Carolyn's sitting on the couch watching. All of a sudden, Charlie Daniels, as you know, he's passed. He had his head bowed down. He started putting so much feeling into it. It hit me. I started crying. I started sweating. Carolyn thought I was having a heart attack. I had to go get in the shower for 20 minutes. Stop crying. Finally, that's when I got out, I started telling her something. It was 22 years after I left Vietnam that I finally told her that some of the stuff I had done. So that brought me out of this. And then that's when I started to think, I got to start doing things for other veterans. I really believe the Lord saved me that day so I can do what I do for veterans. I love doing things for veterans. I always will. As long I give now. When I got home, went back to work for Western Electric, we, go to a training center or something of that sort. I always had a round table the first morning. And everybody's got to tell them who you are, where you're from, what you do. I was nervous. My heart started racing because I'm sitting there making up my little speech.
What do I say?
What am I going to say? It gets to you and you can't remember, but you're so nervous you don't remember what you're going to say. Now, this is before it happened to me with Leigh Greenwood. After that, I could get up in front of 1,000 people, do a presentation, a speech. I like to speak on Veterans Day. I like to speak on Memorial Day. I have a couple of special speeches that I use because I want people to know what those days are. Just like Veterans Day. It's not, Memorial Day is for those that gave the ultimate sacrifice. Veterans Day for the living veteran. And you talk about the ones that are deceased, the ones that died also. But we're the lucky ones. We came home alive. So we need to tell what we know these men and women also that have given the ultimate sacrifice, what they have done. People need to know.
Well, and with losing one veteran or 22 veterans a day to suicide, if we don't talk about these things, they feel like they are siloed off and alone. And the more we can recognize the stories, whether they're hard to hear or not, the more we help somebody else know that their stories, it matters too.
Right.
That's what you give to your Purple Hearts.
Right. Well, it's like when I do the speech at the wall, I always mention from 14E, 28E on the wall, the section. I've got over 200 men I was with in Vietnam that are on there. And people don't realize it, but most of them were 19, 20, 21 years old.
Babies.
Yeah. Never had a chance to come home and have a life, have a family.
Well, we could talk all day, but here's what I want y'all to take away from this. If you want to support what Mike's doing and support these veterans, you can support honor flights. If you're in the North Carolina area and you want to support the Queen City honor flights, we'll include the information in the show notes for this episode. There are honor flights that take off from all over the country. So if you want to reach out to Mike, his contact information will be there. He can probably connect you to the group in your neck of the woods. And what was that other book you showed us, Mike? You showed them David's book.
This is They Marched in the Sunlight. This is about the battle. This is where I'm talking about in the book about what happened on October the 9th with me.
I mean, I guess if Mike can be your hero from Vietnam, I guess if he can figure out a merged call, that's an even bigger accomplishment.
Well,
and Ron, he says you don't answer the phone, and Larry backed him up on that. So you have a reputation already.
Well, your house phone.
I saw his number.
Yeah, house phone. Yeah.
Well, it's nice to meet you guys.
Well, thank you. Here.
And see that you can see their pictures there. They're two very young fellows.
I see a lot of white in the pictures that are very small.
Platinum blondes.
Oh, that's platinum blonde.
Platinum
I'm
blonde.
Platinum blonde. It covers my gray up. Y'all aren't going that road. So I'm curious from y'all's perspective, why do you think you're not hearing back from your elected officials? Do you think it's that they don't care, they don't think it's timely, or is there something else afoot?
Well, let me go ahead and tell you this from the beginning. Ron and I I live in Delaware County, Ohio, went to Delaware County Veterans Service with a bunch of eyewitness testimonials as to what Mike Stubbs did on October the 9th of 1967. They sat down with us. They filled out all of the paperwork required for the nomination for the Medal of Honor, and we left them with a bunch of eyewitness testimonials, guys that were behind the three of us that saw what Mike did. And I don't know if he told you what Mike did.
Yes.
Okay.
My dad told me the story a long time ago.
Just a quick story. Her dad and I grew up together, went to high school together, graduated high school together, went to church together, and so on and so on.
And then went to Vietnam, but he did not have the same experience you did.
No, thank goodness.
Well, that's good.
I know. I'm glad honestly, I'm glad he didn't.
So, I got the story. Then they come home.
He did come home. He was a company clerk in Da Nang, but he didn't experience the kind of firefights y'all did.
No, he was there anyway.
Yes.
Now, I asked them if they would send, because they explained to both of us that this goes to a senator, only a senator,
Mm-hmm.
and they take it to a Senate committee, review all the documents, and vote on it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, a senator here, Sherrod Brown,
Mm-hmm.
the left-wing Democrat,
Mm-hmm.
who they've been dealing with, because I wanted them to send it in advance.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because we grew up a mile apart. Okay, and they said, well, we've been dealing with Sherrod Brown for 10 years. So they sent it to Sherrod Brown. I waited a couple of weeks. I started calling Sherrod Brown's office just to find the status.
Sure.
I think I called him 12 times, talked to his office people, told him why I was calling, and I just want to know the status. Nobody ever called me back.
Wow.
Sherrod Brown doesn't give a shit about veterans,
Nope.
my opinion. So we got a new senator that was appointed by our governor
Mm-hmm.
to replace JD when he became vice president.
Mm-hmm.
His name's John Houston. He was actually a coach at Ohio State football for a while.
Mm-hmm.
His office said that they would make an appointment for me. That was 6 months ago. And despite additional calls, they don't call me back either.
Hmm.
So,
No.
so, you know, we've been looking to find a senator who actually cares about veterans.
Right.
And I think Senator Budd or Senator Tillis, either one of those, Tillis knows Mike,
Mm-hmm.
but either one of those might work.
Well, hopefully we can get Senator Budd to take this up, and maybe you can get Senator Moreno in Ohio. I told Mike, I said, maybe if y'all go buy a car from him, you can get him to pay attention.
Well, he might.
Because he seems like to be a good guy, but I'm sure he's still learning the ropes since he's new up there.
Absolutely. This will be something he's never done before.
Mm-hmm. Well, what y'all have done in trying to make sure Mike receives recognition is very, very much appreciated, because I know that he only tells his story because it helps other veterans to tell theirs. And it's not for his own glory, but it is because too many veterans keep their darkness to themselves. And that's why the suicide rate gets so high. So thank y'all for carrying the torch for him. I appreciate it as one of the next generation ones.
If I can say a little bit,
Yeah.
I want to interrupt. At one time, Senator Burr's office had what we sent in at that time back in 22.
Uh-huh.
We have a letter from his office. He was going to retire, I think in April or May of the year, and he was going to retire the following year or fall.
Oh, Pittenger?
And he sent Senator Burr.
Oh, Senator Burr.
Burr, yeah, that's right.
Richard Burr. So that would be
Burr.
in, let's see, that's the seat Ted got. So what's
Yeah.
that, 16 or 18?
Yeah.
Okay.
But we got a paper back. They just got everything back. But the statement on it was written, him and another person in the office. I don't know. There was 2 people involved. But anyway, basically they said that since this process was submitted, that it would be required to have new information by other eyewitnesses to resubmit it. They sent everything back. That's the last we heard from him. So between the 22 and 25, we have found 2 new reports that have been written. And those are 2 that's added to the ones that have been submitted to Senator Burr. And I did have an email from Senator Budd's office
Mm-hmm.
up at north of you, Mike. What town is that?
Vance, North Carolina.
Yeah. And anyway, she asked what was going on, and I gave her a basic history report, similar to what Senator Budd did, or Burr. And she reported back how she could get the information, and I said, I can tell you when I'm in Tennessee at this time, current time, and I was going to run the paperwork over there and present it to her personally.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't think of her name. And after that email, I've never received an email back. And I've called the office. I have not received a call back.
That's Lindsay.
I've also called Senator Tillis' office, talked to, asked for Elizabeth. I left a message on Elizabeth's phone, and I've never had a call back. That's where I've been at as far
She's
as
a good girl.
updated
Call back.
other information.
I know Elizabeth. I don't understand why she didn't call you back. I'll call her when we finish this up and see if I can help on that front. But I know Tillis is in very much wind down mode right now since he's not running for re-election. But all right. Well, we're not going to stop. We got to figure it out. And I mentioned Senator Cindy Hyde-Smith in Mississippi. I wonder if Ike can reach out to her. She's up for re-election in 26, and she's a good girl. They're beef cattle people, so she would understand Mike coming from a farm community.
Well, Sharon Brown, Democrat, is going to run again.
Is he really?
For Senate. I'm going to his opponent, and I've offered to do a video.
Wonderful.
Okay, explaining, here's the documents. Jared Brown wouldn't return calls, ever. He doesn't give a shit about veterans.
I like your style. That's the kind of thing voters need to know about. Because it's your actions that define you, not what you say.
Exactly.
Which is the story of Mike Stubbs.
Yep.
Oh, this is going to get good. All right. We're going to figure it out, fellas. I'm on your team now. We're going to figure this out.
Thank you so much, dear.
Larry and Ron, it's nice to meet you over the phone. Thank y'all for being dedicated patriots, not just to Mike, but to this entire country. You're very much appreciated. And thank you to all the Black Lions that might wind up listening.
Okay.
Now, that day that Mike did that, Ron got shot through both feet. I got shot 3 times. We didn't have anybody killed.
Proud of that.
Yeah.
And God kept all of y'all safe for his purposes.
And there was 9 of us on the point squad. 8 of us got hit multiple times. But nobody quit.
That's an entire squad leading together. What that winds up being.
We were brothers.
No, it's right. That's not word. That's R. No past tense.
We are. He was going to say that.
I'm not letting you get away with that.
I know what he's going to say. Okay.
Well, gentlemen, it's nice to meet you over the phone. Maybe we'll do a follow-up episode and get all of us on a Zoom together. Larry, you have to go help Ron with that, though, I understand.
I'm the one that's the technical idiot.
Well, maybe y'all can help each other, then it'll be another teamwork opportunity.
Yeah.
Larry's got children that probably Zoom stuff all the time.
Oh, yeah.
And you got grandkids, too. The grandkids probably could help.
I got Zoom on my computer, yeah.
You're very fancy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got 6 grandkids.
Oh.
5 of them are stellar athletes, playing tackle football, playing soccer, playing basketball, and baseball. Matter of fact, one of my grandsons plays on a travel team, and they actually came down to North Carolina and played for a long weekend.
Oh, I love it.
That particular grandson is faster than lightning. He's been their MVP for 3 years. Pitches, catches, plays left field. If he gets on first base, as long as the next batter doesn't strike out, he steals second. Then he steals third. And then he steals home. Because he's just lightning bolt fast.
And Pawpaw's over there hooting and hollering the whole time.
Oh, yeah. No. He's 6'3",
Good Lord, that's tall.
lean and ripped.
Well, make sure you tell him he's got to enjoy that till he becomes 35 and the metabolism catches him.
Well, his dad already got an email from a recruiter for college for baseball.
Do I have to say OH?
Yeah.
But you didn't say IO. You broke your end of the deal there.
No, I went to Ohio State.
Well, gentlemen, I thank you so much, and we'll cycle back, and we're going to do us another follow-up show after we get a hold of Ted Budd, and I think we're going to have some success finally.
Yeah, and
Okay.
If needed, Ron and I'll fly down to North Carolina for face-to-face.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm gonna see Ted this weekend, and I'll talk to Mike, and we'll circle back up.
Yeah, and I'll pay for Ron's ticket.
You hear that? Ron, Larry just got volunteered in front of witnesses.
I'm listening.
Well, let me say this. As far as I know, I'm the only millionaire on this phone call.
No, Leigh. Leigh, I'll put it to you. I know she's got to get on another call in a minute, but Lee's grandfather, let me tell you, he sold land out in Miller Creek where we lived, and you wouldn't believe everything that's on it now. I mean, it was just old farmland. Her grandfather was one of the finest gentlemen you would ever meet. And when they sold the land, they did pretty good, didn't he, Leigh?
But you know what? We've also the key to having anything is not spending it just because you got it. Right,
exactly.
Right, Ron?
Yeah.
Well, I was like email and the information I have that I dealt with Senator Budd's office.
Okay.
Yeah.
And who it was. Lady that I dealt with, but I didn't ever talk to.
Okay.
It was both. We sent 2 emails each, and then he never responded on my last one.
Okay.
So I'll give him that information so he can pass it on to you, and you might you might know her. I don't know.
If I don't, I'm fixing to make friends with her, so it's gonna be fine.
Do you want Lee's? You want Lee's email address?
Maybe you could send us all a note and copy each other.
Yeah, I'll do that. I'll just send a note and copy
Send us a
everybody.
group message.
Right. I'll do that.
Okay.
Have Lee's email address on.
I could email her the letter I sent to Senator Burr. I keep them Burr and Bud. It's hard.
Yeah.
I mean, they're only 2 letters apart. So
I do the same thing. So yeah.
Okay.
Well, thank you, gentlemen. I hope y'all have a good rest of your week, and I look forward to connecting some more.
Thank you so much, dear.
Thank you. And if you have a relationship with your senator, please let us know, because we would love to support his efforts to receive that long overdue recognition for being the kind of leader that we all need these days. Mike, thank you so much for
Leigh, for
coming on the show and, for everything over all the years. I'm very grateful.
Well, that was an honor. Thank you for having me.
All of Mike's information that you're allowed to have is in the show notes for this episode. Thank you for joining us. Follow the links if you're in real estate to do more for our veterans, and join Mike in the effort to take care of people in a way that they've taken care of us. And I'll see you next time.
Now, if this episode brought you value, made you laugh, cry, or in between, then don't forget to subscribe, leave a 5-star review, and share this with somebody else in the real estate trenches. You'll find a Real Talk with Leigh Brown on every major podcast app, so hit follow, and I'll see you in the next conversation.